Thanks a lot, Brian, for having me once again, and I welcome you all to this WordSesh EMEA 2019 edition. I am Maedah Batool, and I hope this session is going to be as exciting and helpful as was my previous talk. So let's quickly start with a brief intro about who I am and what I do. Hello, everyone. I am an open source developer advocate and a community program manager. Let me tell you that I love open source, and for the last 10 years, I've been working with WordPress as its core contributor and maintainer of Girls Who Code and React.js Ladies local meetup chapters. Overall, I maintain this huge developer blogging network which receives about 3 million developer page views every year, and I maintain and manage a huge set of open source projects. Other than that, I am a content strategist and I write for popular web magazines like Scotchio, Torque Mag, Invato Touch Plus, and SitePoint. I'm one of the marketing representatives for the official WordPress Make marketing team. My passion for open source and writing has helped me build an incredible community around my work. I conduct workshops, meetups. I started a tech training startup, which is now a non-profit initiative called Think Tanks, through which I have trained like more than 5,000 girls about how to code with WordPress. I also collaborate with the Node.js Foundation Community Committee on their outreach initiative. To follow more of my work and what I'm up to these days, you can follow me through my Twitter account. My Twitter handle is at Maedah Batool, and obviously you can see and read more of my work through my GitHub profile, my personal blog that is maedahabatool.com, and of course my LinkedIn profile. Okay, so before we start, let's discuss some of the basics. So, all those who have built a website must have gone through all these three phases of site development. So, primarily, a website is developed by going through all these parts, that is, the development part, the staging part, and finally, the production part when your website is actually ready and it is live to the audience. However, my today's talk will deal everything that is related to the optimization of Gatsby sites for production. I'll be discussing several techniques and functionalities which you must configure before you set your site in the production environment. Okay, so I'm sure by now you must be thinking why I am only focusing on Gatsby sites. In case you are an absolute beginner and new to this incredible framework, let me tell you that Gatsby is a free and open source React JS based framework that helps developers build blazing fast websites and apps. And moreover, since Jamstack is the recent trend, and I personally love Jamstack, I've been working with Jamstack for last 3 years or so, and the more I had been using this software, let me tell you, I am becoming a huge fan of it because it actually does wonders, and this is a developer friendly software. So, just for a quick recap, my previous WordSesh talk was also about Gatsby, it was about integrating Gatsby plus WordPress. So, if you want to know more about this integration, here are the links to my talk and the tutorial which I wrote about it. So, whenever we talk about optimizing a Gatsby website for production, I'm sure every developer has different way of doing it. They have different workflows around it. But today I'll be explaining the most simplest form of implementation and the most basic set of functionalities which a Gatsby powered website should possess before it goes live. So we'll be discussing features like sitemaps, functionalities for handling Markdown pages, embedding videos, and functionality to support RSS feed. And after optimizing all these factors, you can finally proceed with the build and deploy process. Okay, so we'll be discussing about sitemaps. And before I begin with the details, at this point of time, you have to make sure that you have a basic Gatsby demo project set up and running. I'm sure after going through all these functionalities, the first impression in your mind is that holy crap, we'll be writing lots and lots of code. But let me tell you that this isn't the case. The best part is we'll be achieving all of this through Gatsby plugins. And one of the key highlights of Gatsby is its plugin directory, where you find plugins for almost all kinds of functionalities. And the plugins which I'll be using today are solely based on my personal experience, and you can try out any other option which suits your requirements. So we'll start off with sitemaps, and the package which we'll be using for it is Gatsby plugin sitemap. So, how you add custom sitemaps in a Gatsby website? First, let's discuss some basics about what are sitemaps and why do you actually need them. So, sitemap is a .xml format file which maintains a list of all the pages to tell search engines like Google about the organization of your site content. Moreover, sitemaps helps to index an unindexed page appropriately if it goes neglected by search engines. Sitemaps are equally important for both new and old websites. However, I would definitely emphasize on adding a sitemap to a newly built website because it is difficult for search engines to find posts and pages of a new website. The main plugin, like I've mentioned before, is the Gatsby plugin sitemap. It is easily available on the Gatsby marketplace for plugins, and you can install it via this installation command in your terminal. The process of handling Gatsby plugin is that first of all, you are going to install the main plugin, and then you are going to configure it into your Gatsby config file. At this point of time, let me tell you that I have a demo Gatsby project set up and running, and I have installed this plugin which will help me create a custom sitemap. So we'll just jump over to the configuration part and let's move on to the editor. So this is my demo Gatsby project. I have also created a GitHub repository for it, and towards the end of this talk, I'll be sharing the link of that repo, and you can easily access the code which is required for all these configurations. And here you can find in the main root folder, you will find the Gatsby config file. And this is basically the heart of our Gatsby project. For adding custom sitemaps, the first thing you are going to do is configure the basic details about your site metadata. And here you can see in this section, I have defined the title, the description, author of course, and the site URL. Also inside the Gatsby config file, you will find several configuration options, and one of these options is for the plugins, where you configure and mention all the plugins which are being used in your Gatsby project. And here's the code block for configuring the Gatsby plugin sitemap. As you can see, the resolve statement initializes the functionality for the Gatsby plugin sitemap, and then to configure its options. Moreover, the plugin also supports several advanced options which helps you customize your sitemap according to your needs. And these options are like for output, for query, and for exclude. You can visit the official plugin repository to read more about these options. So here I am using this query option which fetches information about site and site metadata. Furthermore, I'm querying the all site page which helps to retrieve all page site URLs. That is, it retrieves path property for each graph node through all edges. And towards the end, I've called the serialize function to map data which is fetched for my all site page. And each of these return a page URL with a change frequency of daily and a priority of 0.7. All these properties are easy to configure. These set of options are being configured according to my site requirements, but you can change them according to your needs. So this basic implementation and configuration of Gatsby plugin sitemap will be enough to generate a sitemap for your Gatsby website. So to create a sitemap, you need to generate production build and start the development server. To do so, you have to run the basic build command that is npm run build, or more equivalently as Gatsby build. I'll just type Gatsby build and we'll just wait for a few seconds, and here we go. After the production build is compiled, now it's time to view our sitemap which we've just created. After the build process is complete, you can access the sitemap which resides inside this public folder. So you click the public folder and just scroll down, and here you go. You can see a sitemap.xml file being created which was not there earlier. And see, it has all the details which are necessary. And if you need to access your sitemap in a live environment, all you have to do is deploy your site somewhere and append your web URL by /sitemap.xml, and you'll see a list of all the pages that are accessible to your users. So in this case, my defined web URL was maedahdbatool.com. So to access the sitemap of this site, this is going to be the web URL, which will help you view all the site contents and pages. Next, we are going to empower our Gatsby website with the ability to handle and render the support for Markdown pages. And the plugin which we'll be using to serve the purpose is Gatsby Source File System. So Gatsby has this amazing capability to read folders and files with Markdown and create pages from them. And when we talk about modern websites, I believe that your website should support Markdown, because I love Markdown, and writing in Markdown is always easy and it is appealing to eyes, and there are less chances of error. So before you are setting your website in a live environment, it is important to incorporate this amazing functionality in your Gatsby website. So the process with Gatsby Source File System plugin is really simple. It reads files from the file system, and it then transforms the Markdown to HTML and front matter to data. And finally, through the page API, you build page components. And once the page component is created, you can easily write in Markdown, which gets displayed at the front end. So once again, the main plugin is going to be the Gatsby Source File System. And here is the installation command: npm install save Gatsby File Source System. Plus, this plugin requires another plugin to function properly, which is Gatsby Transform Remark plugin, and it can be installed by the command shown in the slides. So make sure whenever you are incorporating the functionality for Markdown, you have these two plugins installed. Once the plugin installation is complete, we'll head over to the configuration part of this plugin, which will handle all the steps which I've mentioned just a while ago, which includes transformation of Markdown to HTML and then on to the creation of page components. So the next step in the drill is just the same, that is, you're going to configure this plugin. After plugin installation, the first step towards configuring the plugin is that we are going to make sure that the plugin reads through the files into Gatsby from the file system. And then we have defined certain options for name and path. We have actually defined the object with a key called path, and this path helps you set the file system path, which means all our Markdown pages are going to reside inside the source folder. The second step of configuration is that you are now going to add functionality which transforms Markdown to HTML and front matter to data. And for it, like I've mentioned it before, the Gatsby source file system needs a prerequisite plugin, which is the Gatsby Transformer Remark, and I have already installed it, and I'll be defining it in this way. So it reads through all the files that are written in Markdown. So this plugin helps to convert the front matter metadata part of the Markdown files as front matter and content part as HTML. So basically it differentiates between HTML and front matter. So till this point of time, we are through with the setup, which will help to initiate the functionality for Markdown. Now we'll move on to the implementation part, where I'm going to explain how you are going to actually create a Markdown file and how it is going to be rendered on the front end. In the next step, what we are going to do is we'll go to the source folder, and here inside this folder we are going to create a new folder named as Markdown pages. And inside this folder I've created this, and I've created a Markdown file, and I've created a demo Markdown file, and I have named it as 1.md. So we'll just open it up. So in this file I've added some basic key value pairs, which we normally call as the front matter, and these values are for path, date and title. Our third step towards handling the functionality of Markdown is that we are going to physically create a Markdown file, see how it is going to be rendered on the front end. And for it, inside my source folder, I have created a folder called as Markdown pages, and inside it, and I've created a file which I've named it as 1.md. I'll just open it up, and in this file you see I have described a basic key value pairs, which you normally call as the front matter. and these values are for path, date, and title. So what happens is our Gatsby transformer remark, the plugin which I've just installed, it will help to parse this block as front matter. The most important value in this file is the value for path. It basically tells you how you're going to navigate to the blog post, which is actually written in Markdown. So far, we have defined the path of our blog post, but we haven't created a page template for this blog post. Our fourth step is going to create a page template, and for it we'll again head over to the source folder, and inside the source I have created a folder for templates, and inside templates there is a file called blogtemplate.js. So this is a page template for the Markdown files. This is a simple implementation of a page template for Markdown files. The most important highlight of this code is this GraphQL query, which is defined here. So this query generates all the Markdown metadata and HTML as a result. This tells how strong Gatsby is as a framework. Moreover, the result of this query is injected into the template component as data. This Markdown remark property has all the details about the Markdown files, and in order to make use of these details, you need to construct a template for our blog post, which can be viewed easily at our front end. This means that we have to now move to the fifth and the last step. We are going to build a static page component using the create page API. Gatsby has this incredible powerful Node.js API for creating pages. In Gatsby node.js file, we will be generating our blog post using three things. Firstly, we'll be using this blog template. This is just like a single .php file, and the details for this file will be generated through this GraphQL query. And finally, we'll be using the create page function, which is the default Gatsby function. So the create page function will make use of this path and the blog post template to generate pages in Gatsby.js. So after implementing all these 5 steps, now I'm going to show you a live demo of how a Markdown page is being rendered at a front end. So we are just going to open our 1.md file, and here I'll just type anything in Markdown. Let's say I'm creating a heading like Hello John Doe, and we'll just hit the save button and we'll start the development server. You can see John Doe being printed on the front end, and if you take a look at the page URL, it is appended with the same path which I described here. So let's try another thing. Let's say we are creating heading 3 now. Hit the save button and here you go. See, Markdown is working perfectly fine. Let's move on to the next part of this talk, which deals with how you can embed videos in a Gatsby website. Let me tell you that I've been blogging for almost 10 years, and during all this time I have realized that a blog post is totally incomplete without making it visually appealing. Videos, images, GIFs play all the part in making a blog post look good. When you talk about images, they are rendered somewhat in the same way, but when you talk about videos, they are rendered differently and they may vary from one framework to another. Same is the case with embedding videos in Gatsby, and there is this incredible plugin which is called as Gatsby Remark Embed Video, which I'll be using it right now to show you how you can easily embed videos from multiple sources. So here it is. Here is the installation command of this plugin, and this plugin helps you source videos from a variety of video hosts like YouTube, Vimeo, and Dailymotion. However, there are some prerequisite plugins which are must for the Gatsby Remark Embed Video plugin to function properly, and here are the names of these plugins: Gatsby Remark Responsive Iframe, Gatsby Transformer Remark, and Gatsby Remark Images. From looking at these names, there are certain things which must be clear. The Gatsby Transformer Remark was used just a while ago when I was creating the functionality for Markdown pages. This means that the embedded videos will be handled through Markdown pages. Another important requirement which should be taken into account while using the Gatsby Remark Embed Video plugin is that this plugin should be used with Gatsby Remark Responsive Iframe plugin, and it should be defined first. How? I'll be just showing you right away. So let's move on to the process of how this plugin is configured. To configure the plugin, we land directly into our Gatsby config file, and this is the code snippet which configures the Gatsby remark embed video. Before I dive into its option, take note that I have defined the prerequisite plugins accordingly. Here is the Gatsby Transformer Remark plugin. Here is the Gatsby Remark Images plugin. And here is the Gatsby Remark Responsive iframe plugin. Other than that, these are the configuring options for Gatsby Remark Embed Video. The options are quite well defined. For example, these two properties sets the width and height of the video. The ratio property sets the all famous 16:9 ratio rule, which when divided gives us the value of 1.77 default. If you want some other measurement, you can set according to your needs. And finally, no iframe border is set to true. Subsequently, you can change these, and there are several other options which you can find through the official plugin repository. So this was a simple configuration. Now it's time to show how a video is going to be embedded at the front end. Just for a quick reminder, the video are going to be rendered through Markdown pages. So we'll head back to our 1.md file, and here we'll define our video. So the video is defined in the following format. Here you go. This tells that the video source is from YouTube, and here is the video link. Just hit the save button, and when you go to the local host environment, you can see the video being embedded there. Let's take a look at it. Here you go. You can see the video is being successfully embedded. I'll just play it to show that it's working or not. See, it's working perfectly fine. Let's try embedding another video from Vimeo. So after a few break statements, this shows the video source is from Vimeo, and here is the video link. Just save it, head over to the front end, which now shows two consecutive videos. The first video is from the YouTube, as you can see from the icon, and the second video is from the Vimeo. Voila! See, embedding videos in Gatsby website is so much simple. Here I'd like to prove one more point. That is, making your Gatsby website empowered for handling Markdown pages is even more important. It not only handles Markdown files, but also helps you perform other functions, and embedding videos is one of them. Let's move to the final part of this talk, which deals about adding RSS feed to a Gatsby website. And the plugin which I'll be using for it is the Gatsby plugin feed. So by adding RSS feed, you are actually making your site content easy to subscribe through feed reader apps, which means you are making your site content accessible to news related activities. The main plugin, like I've mentioned before, is the Gatsby plugin field. You can see the command through which it gets installed. However, there are two other plugins, that is the Gatsby source file system and Gatsby transformer remark. Again, by looking at these plugins, one thing is clear, that the plugin works perfectly with Markdown, and it has easy to customize solutions and options with Markdown. We'll be exploring them right away. Once the plugin is successfully installed, go straight away to the Gatsby config.js file, and you're going to configure the plugin through this code snippet. The Gatsby plugin feed package also supports several options, and I have used two of these, which is the query and the feeds array. First of all, I'm using this query component to fetch site information like site metadata, title, descriptions, and site URL. Later, I'm using this feeds array, which takes up a serialize function and a GraphQL query. And inside the feeds array, I have used a serialize function and a GraphQL query. And both these help us to generate the structure of our RSS feed file. But you must be wondering, where is this data coming from? The source of this data comes from all Markdown remark property, and let's not forget that this property handles the files which are written in Markdown format. Finally, I have used three other options. One is for the output, then is the title and the match. The output tells the exact path which you want the RSS feed file to have, and match is basically used for referencing. By default, an RSS feed page gets referenced through all web pages of your blog. But if you want to change it to some custom page, you can add it here. Till now, we have configured the process which could help us generate the structure of an RSS feed page. But how its implementation in Markdown will be handled, that is going to be configured through our Gatsby Node.js file. So in a Gatsby Node.js file, I have written this code snippet which defines the create file path and the create node field for our RSS feed page. Here you can find it is returning details like the name, node and value. Now comes the final part when we will be creating the actual RSS.xml page for our website. Just like we created a sitemap for our website, in the same way RSS feed.xml file will be generated during the build environment. So head over to the terminal and type the npm build command or equivalently as gatsby build, and your rss.xml file will be generated and is available for you to view through the public folder. So we'll just go to the public folder and scroll down the files. And here you can see the RSS file.xml being created. It has all the basic details of our website which you have defined through our Markdown pages. You can see these details. Some of these details are easy to identify. And right below the rss.xml file is a sitemap.xml file which we created just a few minutes ago. By taking these 4 steps, not only optimizes your Gatsby website for product, but also improves the chances of getting better search engine rankings through browsers like Google. That's about it. Thanks a lot, Brian, and every one of you for having me here. I hope that this talk was quite informative and helpful for you folks. You can share your feedback and questions by following me on Twitter at Maedah Batool. Plus, like I've mentioned it earlier, I have created a GitHub repository for this project. You can access it through my GitHub profile, github/maedahabatool/WordSesh September 2019. And the slides are also available from the link provided. Just go ahead, take a look at it, try replicating the process, and do let me know how much you enjoyed this tutorial. Thanks a lot and have a good day.